Hi, I'm Kim.
I'm Brad.
We're 6260 Haunted, California, and today we're going to do an update for what you need to know before you go to Universal Studios in 2022.
Yeah, so we got some questions through our last video on it, and we'll link that down below, and a lot of things there still remain the same. But obviously we're getting into the fall time and things are changing.
Okay, so things have changed a lot going into the second half of the year because you have the holidays coming up, you have Halloween Horror Nights, which greatly impacts Universal Studios Hollywood, in our opinion, all in the best of ways. So we thought we would find this helpful, and like we said, a lot of this is stuff we realized that you guys had questions about.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start with one of our questions has been about parking.
Okay, so where would you park going to a day at Universal Studios? We say it kind of depends.
Yeah, it really depends what you're doing. General parking's $30, and it is a little bit ways out there sometimes.
That's a kind of a little bit farther walk from Universal Studios. It's further down City Walk. So if after the parks you were going to go to City Walk and maybe do some shopping and dining, that might be a better place for you. Plus, it's the cheapest place to park.
Yeah, and we made this mistake the other day when we went to Universal Studios because we didn't plan on going to dinner, and we actually bought the preferred parking because we have parking with our passes included, but we upgraded because we figured, well, what's great about preferred is it's right by the gate, usually in the Frankenstein lot.
So that is, if you're facing Universal Studios red carpet entrance, it's off to the left. So it's a little bit of a walk, but it's away from City Walk.
And it's a lot shorter walk out of the park to your car than it would be to the regular general parking. So if you're gonna use that, make sure you're just going to the park and out, not going to City Walk.
So preferred parking closer to the gate is $45.
Yeah, so it is a little bit more expensive, and even more expensive is
the front gate parking, and that's outside, uncovered, right in front of Universal Studios. But it depends where you park. Sometimes you still might be a little bit into City Walk.
Yeah, so that's kind of more expensive, and actually sometimes we paid for preferred and parked in that one because it wasn't a busy day. So sometimes you may have those days that are not that busy and they want to open the Frankenstein lot. They may put you over there, but it's very rare.
So it does happen once in a blue moon, but it was $60 to do that. You and I have talked about it. That's not something we would do unless it was like that situation where they closed the preferred parking lot for Frankenstein and had everybody go over to the other.
Yeah, that walk is just not really worth that shorter distance. It doesn't seem too far for either one.
And of course, there's valet, which is $25 per hour for the first 2 hours.
$45 after 2 hours. It's really confusing. Check the website because they have a whole bunch of things that can make it lower or different things you need to do. So yeah, our general parking or preferred is probably your best bet.
Okay, so next, then we need to update this video real quick is the COVID rules. Since our last video, they have been relaxed. You don't need to wear masks. You don't have to show proof of vaccination. And you don't have to show a negative test if you weren't vaccinated. That has gone by the wayside. Now it's personal choice.
Yeah, and that's for now. Of course, things always change. We had rumors earlier that the mask mandate was going to come back to Los Angeles, but look, it didn't. So always check the website right before you go so you have the latest idea of what the COVID rules are.
Okay, so the most common question we get is it worth it to get Express Pass? Do I need it?
Yeah, it's a really hard question to answer because there's a lot of variables, and especially they were coming up in this time of season with Halloween Horror Nights, holidays, school holidays, and shortened hours.
And of course, holiday Christmas event. So that's the end of the year. All those things kind of impact crowds, especially on weekends. If you're coming up on school holiday, like Labor Day is coming up, that might impact your day, your weekend. So if you're out of school or have a day off from work for some reason for a holiday, whatnot, think other people will too.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a hard question to answer, and we can never really fully answer it because those times can be really busy. Sometimes it may not be too bad.
And of course, we do not have a crystal ball.
Yeah. So also, let's talk about, well, we were talking about weekends and Halloween Horror Nights, how that's going to affect it.
So of course, Halloween Horror Nights does have a special, like a day-night pass that starts at 2 o'clock. So after 2 o'clock, you might see a lot more crowds in the park.
Yeah, so you may be going, okay, maybe I'll look at the half-day pass.
Exactly. But I would also maybe, as a little bit of a predictor, go on to Halloween Horror Nights tickets and see which tickets cost the most and which are less, because the days that are less are sometimes less likely to be popular. It's busy.
They're not as busy usually, especially at the very beginning of Halloween Horror Nights. You get towards the end, it's going to be a madhouse.
It is, but like the first weekend is probably busy, or second weekend, and then there's kind of a lull for a little bit.
So we were talking a little bit about that partial day pass.
Okay, so some people might be willing to take the risk in seeing what is the wait time in the park. Now, you could get to Universal Studios Hollywood, walk through the gates, and they're already sold out. You could walk through the gates and they have them available, and then you're like, okay, yeah, I see it's getting busy. I feel like this would be a good decision.
And you may just want to save a few dollars instead of buying it at the beginning of the day, thinking, well, maybe if they're available in the afternoon, hey, they're there.
They have it after 3 o'clock special.
Yeah, and that gets where it gets really kind of hard to explain, especially after 3:30 is when the Express Pass comes in.
Well, right now it's 3. They're talking about doing 3:30, so that'll be interesting to see if they do change that half hour.
And the park hours are changing now, so sometimes the parks are going to be closed at 6 o'clock. So can you get everything done in 3 hours? It's tight.
Sometimes it's tight. If you went and weren't like, I'm not going to stop for lunch, I did my shopping beforehand, I'm not going to, I use the bathroom before 3 o'clock, I'm in line at 3, you might, but especially if you're throwing in the studio tour with it, I'm not sure you could get through everything.
Now, if it's 7 o'clock, actually, we've done it twice during the most busiest times, the last day of summer, and at one time during spring break, just to see how well it would work. And we got all the rides in. All of them, I should say, all the rides that we really wanted to get in. So, excluding like the little kids' rides over by
the Super Silly Fun Land, or we didn't do like Kung Fu Panda show, like things like that. So it just kind of depends on what you want to do. What's your priorities?
Yeah, so it is
But then once again, there's no guarantee that after 3:30 pass is going to be available. Once again, it's subject to availability, how fast does it sell out, etc. So you're taking a gamble.
Yeah, and also, again, like what Kim was saying at Halloween Horror Nights, it gets busy, and some people may be buying it at that time anyways because they want to use it before they go to Halloween Horror Nights so they could go through all the mazes and still get all the rides in. Okay,
so we do talk a lot about Halloween Horror Nights here because it just impacts the park in different ways. It's just a big part of fall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a big part of it also about fall is to be aware of, because we're talking about the Express Pass, is Utah week.
Right. So sometimes there's Utah week, Nevada week. I was just kind of going online trying to get an idea. It seems like the last 2 weeks of October, there's a lot of schools in surrounding states that have off. So those might be a little bit more popular times around Halloween. Plus you have Halloween and everybody's like, oh, I want to get to the park.
Yeah.
Or they have the mixed day night pass for Halloween Horror Nights.
Okay. So let's talk about how this impacts everything.
Okay, so we still stand by our advice to start in the lower lot, like down at Mummy, Transformers, Jurassic World, things like that.
That's if Harry Potter Forbidden Journey is more than 20 minutes.
So if it's less than 20 minutes, they've kind of pad the timing because you're walking through the queue so long. Yeah. So we've gotten through that queue, and literally sometimes I think we were a walk through, like by the time you go outside through the potting area, the garden area, and then through the castle, that eats up a lot of time.
Yeah, that huge maze you go through inside, you can do all those turns. You can get dizzy if you do it too quick.
Okay, I haven't tried that, but okay, we'll see.
So yeah, we stand by that. Again, we'll link our video down below because a lot of that will still say even with Halloween Horror Nights. Other things with Halloween Horror Nights you're going to notice, there are going to be some changes throughout the park. Obviously, you're going to see the mazes going up. We saw them going up our last trip there, which is, she's jumping up and down.
Oh, I do. I love Halloween Horror Nights. We're not sponsored by Universal or anything like that, but that is one of my favorite things of the year is Halloween Horror Nights. I love it. I look forward to it every year. I can't say enough good things.
And we're going to be doing the R.I.P tour once again this year. Well, if once we do it, we'll link it down below. But so look for that review coming. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, so one of the things that also impacts any time of year, but especially during Halloween Horror Nights, is shows. You've got to watch those times if you're thinking you want to go to see, let's say, Waterworld, which we enjoy a lot, is they only have a certain amount of shows per day, and usually the last show is like an hour or two before the park closes.
Yeah, and so they're going to be shortening these shows down time, and actually probably the quantity of the shows a little bit as well, how many of them they have available.
Okay, and also they just brought back the special effects show that's only available on weekends, like Saturday and Sunday right now. But I think those times are going to be greatly affected going into Halloween Horror Nights because they do the Jabberwocky show, which they are going to bring back this year, they've said. So they're going to need time to prep for that for Halloween Horror Nights.
So other changes you're going to see with Halloween Horror Nights coming, and the reason we're talking about this because it takes over Universal Studios, and also it takes
it goes on the studio tour tram becomes the Terror Tram at night. So that always ends early because they have the scare actors that need to set up, but usually the scare actors aren't there right away because they go up to the opening scare ceremony to kind of open up each Halloween Horror Night. But also it gives the team members that work on the sets time to set up
War of the Worlds
there you go.
area. Other thing about this you're going to see is like with Bates Motel, there's a maze right in front of it, so it's going to be blocking the Bates Motel. You're going to have weird things kind of going through the War of the Worlds area that are not normally there. It'll be covered in plastic.
Which is kind of funny.
That's just weird. So yeah, it definitely impacts the studio tour. So if you're just going for Universal Studios, be prepared for things to be a little bit different, changed. Some areas shut off, and some areas may be a little bit scary for some kids if they see some of the things out.
And quite frankly, they're going to have elements of Halloween Horror Nights all over the park because they have like the scared zones at night. Holiday at Christmas event, they're gonna impact the park, but it's open all day, so they're always kind of there. So especially like when they have the Grinch, they say get there early before noon if you want to see the Grinch, things like that. So you have to plan for these special events, how are gonna impact your park time.
And I would really say, other than the holiday crowds, because school's not being out during Christmas, it's not gonna impact the parks as your normal everyday park. So,
yeah, this isn't like going into, I don't know, January and there's no event. So this is a different time of year.
So please like,
subscribe,
and follow along on our HANA if you're finding this helpful. So let's talk about the last thing we need to talk about, which is
restaurants close early.
Yeah, so they're gonna have different times. I think the only one we really haven't seen any big difference on the time changes is Three Broomsticks.
That tends to be open more often. It's quite popular.
But the other ones we have seen that change is Jurassic Cafe is one of them.
That's one of our favorites, but that one seems to either open up later or especially Halloween Horror Nights gets affected. It closes earlier and it opens later on Halloween Horror Night nights.
Yeah, and then there's some that are just not open at all or be weird hours because based on demand and the time of day because, you know,
it's seasonal.
Yeah, we're in a slow period, but then it gets busy, then goes slow. It's that weird time of year. That's basically everything we got, except for if you want to go to Halloween Horror Nights, make sure you get your tickets early because they tend to sell out.
And also, we have a ton of videos on that. We're going to link them right down below. Or we're going to link them down below in the comments.
So with that, I think it's time for us to say goodbye and
find your magic. Bye, everyone.